Good evening and welcome to Stories from the Witching Hour with your host, Evelina, and co-host, Midnight. Tonight's story is called The Haunted Mirror. Claire had always been fascinated by antiques, the allure of old objects with mysterious histories drawing her in like a moth to a flame. So when she found the mirror at a local market, she knew she had to have it. The mirror was so beautiful, its ornate frame carved with intricate swirling patterns that seemed almost alive, shifting and changing when she glanced away. The glass was polished to perfection, reflecting the world with an almost unnatural clarity. It was a piece that spoke of forgotten times and untold secrets, and Claire was captivated. The man who sold it to her was eager to get rid of it. His hands trembled as he wrapped it carefully in a cloth, his eyes avoiding hers as he muttered something about the mirror being old and temperamental. Claire didn't pay much attention to his words. She was too entranced by her new find. She carried the mirror home with a sense of excitement, eager to find the perfect spot in her bedroom. Once home, she hung the mirror on the wall opposite her bed, admiring how it caught the light and made her room feel larger, more mysterious. She stood in front of it, admiring her reflection, pleased with how the mirror seemed to enhance her features. But as she turned to leave, she thought she saw something move in the background. Just a flicker, like a shadow passing quickly out of view. She shook her head, telling herself it was just her imagination, and went on with her day. That night, as Claire got ready for bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The mirror seemed to draw her attention, pulling her gaze towards it, even when she tried to look away. She caught glimpses of things that shouldn't be there, dark shapes lurking in the corners of the room, faces that weren't her own staring back at her, their expressions twisted and unnatural. She tried to dismiss it as fatigue, but the unease lingered, making it difficult to fall asleep. Over the next few days, the strange occurrences only grew worse. The mirror's reflections became more distorted, more unsettling. Claire began to see her deepest fears play out in the glass, visions of being lost in a dark, endless void, of faceless figures reaching out to drag her down into the shadows. The mirror seemed to taunt her, showing her things she never wanted to see, things that left her feeling cold and hollow. Then came the night when everything changed. Claire was brushing her hair in front of the mirror, trying to ignore the prickling sensation of being watched, when she noticed something strange. Her reflection wasn't moving in sync with her. She raised her hand to touch her face, but the reflection did not mimic the action. Instead, it stood there, still as a statue, staring back at her with a smile that sent chills down her spine. The smile was wrong. Too wide, too knowing. It was a smile that didn't belong on her face, and then the reflection began to move on its own, slowly, deliberately, raising its hand to press against the glass. Claire's heart pounded in her chest as the room grew cold, the temperature dropping so rapidly that her breath misted in the air. The mirror started to glow with an eerie, sickly light, casting long, unnatural shadows across the room. A whisper filled the air, soft at first, but growing louder, more insistent. It was coming from the mirror, from the twisted reflection that now seemed more real than she did. The voice was cold and malevolent, telling her that it wanted her soul, that it had been waiting for someone like her. Someone who could be trapped. Someone who could take its place. Claire tried to tear her gaze away, but she couldn't. The mirror held her, its pull irresistible. She felt herself being drawn closer, her body moving against her will. The reflection's hand pushed against the glass, and to her horror, it began to break through, the surface of the mirror rippling like water. The hand reached out, its fingers cold and solid as they wrapped around her wrist, pulling her toward the glass. She struggled, but the force was too strong. With a final, desperate scream, Claire was yanked into the mirror, her body passing through the glass as if it were a doorway. On the other side, she found herself in a twisted, nightmarish version of her bedroom. The walls were dark and warped, the air thick with a suffocating sense of dread. Everything was wrong, distorted, as if she were seeing the world through a funhouse mirror. And there, standing on the other side of the glass, was her reflection. Only it wasn't her anymore. It was the ghost, the malevolent spirit that had been trapped in the mirror for centuries, now free to walk in the real world, wearing her face. It turned and smiled at her one last time, a grin full of malice and triumph, before it stepped out of the room, leaving Claire trapped inside the mirror, pounding on the glass with no one to hear her screams. The next morning, Claire's family noticed a change in her. She was quieter, her movements a little too precise, her smile a little too wide. They dismissed it as fatigue or stress, never suspecting that the girl they saw was not their daughter, but a spirit that had taken her place. The haunted mirror remained in her room, its glass now dark and lifeless, waiting for the next unsuspecting soul to look into its depths and fall victim to the curse within. Thank you for joining us this evening. I hope you sleep well. Good night.